All right, it looks like we see the numbers starting to level off, so we will get started. Thank you everyone for joining us tonight for the MIT Executive MBA Technology Panel webinar. My name is Amber Ackerman. I'm the Senior Associate Director of Operations and Advising for the EMBA and the Sloan Fellows MBA teams. In my role, I manage the logistics and operations, as well as the finance and budgeting for the team. And I serve as one of the program advisors. I'm joined tonight by my colleagues, Tom and Mike. If you gentlemen would like to introduce yourselves as well.
Hi, everyone. My name is Tom Little. I'm a marketing assistant with the team. My biggest responsibilities are helping to facilitate these events and social media. I'll be running technical aspects tonight and answering questions in the Q&A function, and I'm happy to see you all here.
Thanks, Tom. Hi, everyone. My name's Mike McCauley. I'm the Senior Associate Director on the Executive Degree Programs team. I oversee all of the marketing recruiting for the EMBA, anything that is related to our communications, websites, emails, social, and then the recruiting piece, which is one of these events that you're on right now. So thank you so much for joining us. We are excited to get going. Amber.
Thank you, Mike and Tom. Happy to be here with you both. All right, so let's just quickly look at the agenda for this evening. We're going to start with the MIT Executive MBA at a glance. Then we're going to talk a little bit in more detail about the technology centers and leadership at MIT. And then probably most importantly, we're going to make sure to save time for your questions for our student and alumni panel. All right, so yes, let's dive right in with the MIT Executive MBA at a glance. We'll start first with the missions of MIT and MIT Sloan. So both MIT Sloan and the EMBA are extremely mission driven. And so the mission of the school and of Sloan is a differentiator for our program. And during the application process, we're going to ask you how you can relate to the mission with one of the questions that you'll have to answer. So the mission of MIT is to advance knowledge and educate students in science, technology, and other areas of scholarship that will best serve the nation and the world in the 21st century. And now at Sloan, we have the mission written on the wall of E62, one of the buildings where classes are held, and that is to develop principled, innovative leaders who improve the world and to generate ideas that advance management practice. Okay, so looking kind of holistically at the MIT Executive MBA program, this is an executive level MBA program. So the class of 2025 will come to campus for orientation in September of 2023, and you'll have classes starting in October, and these will carry over 26 weekend sessions. So here we define a weekend as Friday and Saturday. So you'll come in for class, have classes all day on Friday, there'll be an evening event, and then Saturday you'll have classes, and we will get you out the door around 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So these classes meet every 2 to 3 weeks, roughly. And then about every 5 to 6 months, there is a week-long module spread out that'll do a bit more of a deeper dive into different parts of the curriculum. One of these week-long modules comes in your final spring, where you'll get the opportunity to travel on a week-long international consulting project. It's important to note that the MBA that you get from the EMBA program is the same as the Sloan Fellows MBA and the traditional 2-year MBA. So the coursework is the same, the hours in the classroom are the same, just the schedule is spread out a little bit differently. So the stats on the screen are specifically for the EMBA class of 2023, but they look remarkably similar to all our class years, and an average cohort will be made up of similar numbers such as this. You'll be in class with 126 global executives. For the class of 2023, this is very high, the director level and above. It's usually in the 80s and the 90s. So 90% of the class of 2023 are director level and above, with an average age of 41. Coming into the program, most folks have an average of 17 years of work experience. So we do have the most senior EMBA cohort of any of our peer schools. This year's class is 33% women. And so while we are always working to get those numbers higher, it's in the 30 to 40% range each year. 60% of the class is non-local, meaning they come from outside of Massachusetts. And so while not everyone may live internationally when they're in the program, 50% of the class on average comes from an international origin. We have 14% URM, so the underrepresented minorities in the class. And while it's not a requirement, you will be in the cohort with roughly 60% of folks that hold advanced degrees already, whether that is another master's, a PhD, or a JD. And most importantly, in this program, we do require that you're working full time to put your learnings immediately into practice at work. So 100% of the cohort is fully employed. One of the things that truly sets us apart is the faculty here at MIT and MIT Sloan. And we have the most senior faculty teaching in the EMBA program. So these are world-class researchers, they're industry experts and distinguished teachers. They're the ones writing the books for the classes you have that other schools are using to study the same material. The faculty here love teaching the EMBAs because they feel that they can learn just as much from you all as you can from them. While we have plenty of faculty that I could talk about, since tonight is the technology webinar, we'll focus on two specific technology faculty we have in the program. I'll start with Georgia Parakis, and so she's a former faculty director of the EMBA program, and she teaches DMD. She's the new Associate Dean of Social and Ethical Responsibility at the College of Computing here at MIT, as well as keeping her role as an Associate Dean at Sloan and co-managing the Operations Research Center. She teaches DMD for the students, as I mentioned, and that's kind of defined as statistics on steroids. Next, we have Dimitris Bertsinas, and he is another technology faculty in the program. He teaches the Analytics Edge course, which is part of our business analytics certificate. And so he is also a professor of operations research and the associate dean for the Masters of Business Analytics program here at MIT. This year in January, he is also teaching another data-driven elective, LQ2. And so his course is a favorite for those in the program as well. All right, and with that, I'm going to hand it over to Mike to talk a little bit more about technology at MIT.
Thanks, Amber. And again, welcome everyone. We're glad you're here with us tonight on the East Coast and wherever else you may be calling in from. So I'd like to spend the next few minutes talking about MIT's focus on technology, specifically within our ecosystem at MIT Sloan and the Kendall Square ecosystem in Cambridge, Mass. So as you know, MIT is the preeminent leader in innovation and technology, and that's really a part of everything that we do, both at the Institute and MIT Sloan, quite literally. You'll see here a rough map of all of the technology organizations, startups, firms, and businesses around Kendall Square, and specifically right in the middle of that slide, that's MIT, which is depicted in red on the map. So you can really see just how close we are to all of these software technology organizations. Now, some of these companies were formed out of MIT, while others have a significant research tie-in that are formulated from right inside of our halls. And this gives you an idea of just how many tech firms too. In energy, biotech, pharma, venture capitalism, data, they're all within walking distance of our campus. But let's talk about MIT and MIT Sloan ecosystem specifically. So we find that the ecosystem is set up in a way to truly support all the dynamic cutting edge research that's happening both inside and outside of campus, each focus on a different discipline too. And you can really see that intersection between technology and innovation and business at MIT Sloan. So each of these centers support research that is vital to today's world, focusing on the impact needed to do the hard work that solves big problems. And when we talk about the ecosystem at MIT and MIT Sloan, I do like to point out as a bit of a reminder that if you are an MIT EMBA student, you can gain access to any of these offices, centers, anything of the kind, take part in the exact same opportunities as any other MIT student here. So places like Center for Information Systems Research, which focuses on IT and workflow processes, and as well, I'll point out the Martin Trust Center for Entrepreneurship, which is a crucial resource for students interested in scaling their startups. Each of these resources are an integral part of the MIT Sloan ecosystem when it comes to technology. Now, compared to some of these other centers and initiatives, the MIT Quest for Intelligence is still in its infancy, as you can see. It's formed in 2018, and it's focused on two key questions. How does human intelligence work in terms of engineering? And how can we better grasp that intelligence to build more useful machines to the benefit of society? The main focus here, though, is on MIT's ethical responsibilities. As Amber said, remember, MIT Sloan is a mission-driven school dedicated to developing principled, innovative leaders who will improve the world. So an initiative such as the MIT Quest for Intelligence really accomplishes just that. So I do want to point out the MIT Schwarzman College of Computing as well. Amber touched on it just briefly, so share a little bit more information about that here too. So it's an interdisciplinary hub that strives to recalibrate MIT to bring the power of computing and AI to all fields of study and build upon MIT's strength in computer science. I'll give you a bit more context into the dedication to data and ethics as well. So we mentioned that our former EMBA faculty director, Georgia Parakis, is now the Associate Dean of Social and Ethical Responsibilities of Computing, and she has a leadership role in the school. Amber spoke a little bit about Georgia earlier tonight, and even with this new role, she is still teaching EMBA students. You'll often see those types of aha connections and cross-functional collaborations throughout MIT Sloan, and that's something that makes both the school and our EMBA program quite unique. And then finally, here are some examples of where our students in technology are working while in the MIT EMBA program. You'll notice too that 18% of our class of 2023 is working in software and tech. That number is pretty consistent across our cohorts. It ranges all the way up to about 25%. And some of these organizations are within biotech and pharma. Others are in innovation and science. There are large organizations, there are startups, some local and others on the other side of the country. There's a vast amount of history in the organizational backgrounds in which our students work, and that's evidently on display when you are part of our cohort and with our students inside of the classroom. So Amber and I have been talking a little bit about the MIT EMBA to you. We wanted to spend the rest of the session giving you all the opportunity to ask questions that you may have to our incredible panelists. You can go ahead and start typing questions in the Q&A chat. We'll pull some of those questions for them to be answered. And you can go ahead and start doing that. And while you are doing that, I'll ask our panelists to introduce themselves, tell us where they're from, talk a little bit about their role in the tech sector. Mike, I will start with you.
Thanks, Mike, and good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of you. It's great to be online with you. I'm Mike Leonard. I'm the CEO of Motif FoodWorks, a food technology startup here in Boston. And Motif's mission is to enable the creation of plant-based foods that people actually crave. I don't know how many of you are plant-based consumers, but if you are, you probably realize that the foods you're eating don't really measure up to the sensory expectations in terms of taste, texture, and nutrition that you expect. And so Motif leverages a variety of different technologies, mainly biotechnology, synthetic biology, and other types of food tech to deliver animal-free solutions that really improve the sensory quality and nutrition quality of plant-based foods. My background is technical. I have a bachelor's in chemistry and a PhD in polymer science and engineering. So I spent a lot of years in school, and there was a 20-year gap between my PhD and when I chose to pursue an MBA at MIT. Happy to answer any questions you might have about that sort of situation. But I spent my whole career in the food industry, about 20 years total. Motif is my first startup experience, but I worked most of my career in upstream technology development and commercialization in the food space. So it's a pleasure to meet you all.
Great, Oleg, go for it.
Hi, my name is Oli Kirko. I'm president for North America for Cambridge Consultants. Cambridge Consultants is a product development and innovation services firm. It's been 60 years in the business, owned by Capgemini, which is a really large consulting firm. We work in very deep tech in broad areas from healthcare, industrial, consumer, you name it. We've been working on working with multinational startups. There is never a boring day. My background is in engineering. I'm an electrical engineer by trade, advanced degree in electrical engineering. When I joined the MBA, I was at Analog Devices and Sensata Technologies. So I have two of the firms that you saw on the chart that Mike showed. I'm happy to answer any questions about why the MBA for me and what has done for me and how my career has accelerated after. Thank you.
Thank you both so much. I think that's actually a great way for us to start. Maybe the two of you can maybe talk a little bit about why you applied to the MIT EMBA program, what maybe you were looking for in your career and in that professional journey.
Sure, I'm happy to kick that off. So I consider myself to be a technical person, an R&D person who also has a very strong business appreciation for business. So I consider myself to be a business person that happens to work in R&D and technology development. And over the years, I've spent my career in industry at that interface of technology and the P&L. And you learn a lot by doing in that environment. And the companies I worked for, some big names you probably recognize, PepsiCo, Kraft Heinz, DuPont, International Flavors and Fragrances. There's only so much you can learn by doing, right? And over the years, I had really come to appreciate the knowledge and problem-solving ability of some of my more commercial counterparts. And I'd always wanted to pursue a formal education in business. It was just a question of when the right time was. And when I came to Boston to join Motif, I actually joined as the Chief Technology Officer back in 2019. I decided that, given the mandate to improve the world through sustainable plant-based foods and the platform I had in my industry, it was the right time to look into getting that education. And MIT was a natural choice for me as a technology grounded person. And as someone who appreciates application of knowledge, I think mens et manus is a very real thing at MIT. We live it every day. And without application, knowledge is simply potential power, right? I think it's about putting it into practice that really matters. And MIT, I think, is unparalleled in its ability to create environments where you can put what you learn into action every day. So I really appreciated that element of action learning, applied learning. Plus, as a technology educated person, who doesn't want to be spending time at MIT and learning with a community that exists here? So for me, that was the major motivation.
So for me, the journey was similar in a way that I'd started as a circuit designer, and my career path was to follow the technical ladder. And as I was leading bigger and bigger projects, and that pulled in various people from various parts of the organizations, a lot of the problems that I was facing were more people and organizational challenges. And when I thought about an MBA and talked to various mentors at the time, I was at Analog Devices, and everyone was very encouraging really just to get the well-rounded tool set and the education, the proper education in business, and really surround myself to be a better leader. So that was my original motivation for going through the experience. Obviously, the MIT is the mecca of the engineering community. So I obviously gravitated to it, and it was a very different experience once I went through it. Yes, of course, I did get an education that is unparalleled. I second Mike's sentiment that the mens at manus was really hit home with me, being an engineer and being really eager to solve problems and bring real solutions on Monday, then right after the weekend. But I went through a transformational journey through the program, and because of that, my career accelerated. So my start was more for around education. I got so much more out of it.
Thanks, Oli. You and Mike both mentioned that Manzumanos bringing the classroom into the office. Are there any particular frameworks from the courses that you remember taking and kind of immediately applying? And so what course was that, and kind of what framework does that still resonate with you?
I'll kick that off. And for me, it started from the very first course, which was the organization processes, which is a coursework where you get taught about not only the strategy, analytics, and the what feels comfort for engineering, but the other skill set that make a leader successful, which are the political and stakeholder management and the culture of an organization, and really what makes an effective leader. So in that, as part of that coursework, you're asked to pick a project from work where you could take on and improve on something after you do the analysis with the various lenses. So I picked I was at Sensata at the time, and I picked for us was innovation and organic growth, and how we become a more innovative organization. I ended up carrying that project through the organization lab and throughout the curriculum. So it was more of a sort of 2-year-long project for me because there was so much to do. So it started with the very first class. The impact was almost immediate for me.
Yeah, I echo that statement about organizational processes. Roberto Fernandez is an outstanding professor. If you are eventually become part of this cohort, you'll get to take class from him. It's a great experience, and I echo what Oli said about that class. You know, for me, there are two sort of areas where I was really able to apply what I was learning in real time to my job. And I should mention too, as part of my journey, again, I joined Motif as the CTO back in 2019. When it was time for a leadership change about 4 months ago, one of the main reasons why our board of directors felt like I was the right choice for that role was because I was in this program. So I would say that the credibility that this curriculum and the reputation of MIT bring is tremendous. And if it weren't for this program, I wouldn't be in the CEO chair right now. When I made that transition back in August, I found myself in the middle of an amazing level of uncertainty. And that's always true in any startup organization. But when you're sitting in the CEO chair and things really are up to you, and you don't have a lot of resources to lean on, learning how to cope with uncertainty is critical, both from a business standpoint as well as a organizational management standpoint. So I'd say that's one feature of the program, whether you're dealing with organizational issues, political issues, structural issues, cultural issues, or really gnarly financial problems or challenges. Learning how to cope with uncertainty is a real hallmark of this program. And so from a leadership standpoint, Elspeth Johnson's leading organizations class was absolutely essential for me. I was able to take frameworks around leading large-scale change. How do you rally an organization in the middle of a disruption, keep people focused, and providing a rational framework to organize your sort of day-to-day leadership activities. We all sort of learn by doing, like I said before, but having the confidence that comes with frameworks that have been proven over time is a huge benefit. It gave me a lot of leverage as I entered my role as a new CEO to help my team understand what we were doing, why we were doing it, what I expected of them, and how we were going to grow the organization. I'd also say the uncertainty piece shows up everywhere when it comes to estimating how you're going to grow as a company, what your revenues are going to be, how you want to approach IP strategy. And so coming up with frameworks and learning about frameworks in classes like data models and decisions and financial management to create a rigorous framework so you're not just getting by on your wits and sort of anecdotal information to really make calls based on quantitative information and communication tools that your board can understand, your stakeholders can understand, has been hugely helpful. So I'd say I've been part of the program since the beginning of the cohort in October 2021, but the last 4 or 5 months for me have been amazing in terms of the leverage I've been able to get as a new CEO.
We had a question come in outside of the curriculum and maybe focusing a little bit more on the electives that you've taken. Mike, I know that you're coming up on an executive electives period in January and then in the spring. Anything if you took in past January, and then Oli, obviously anything that you took that maybe resonated, stuck out. If you can maybe talk a little bit about those classes and if either of you did any type of cross-registering as well, if you could talk maybe a little bit about that.
Sure, you want to go first, Oli?
Okay, I can. So I didn't do any cross-registering at Harvard. MIT is such a rich ecosystem. So if you're not careful, you're drinking from the fire hose. But the thing is that it's always there, and you can always come back to it. The electives that Mike mentioned are a program that are open to alumni for life, which is a fantastic benefit that is in January. So it's open to the executive cohort, which includes Sloan Fellows and the Executive MBA. So courses that I've taken. I took a number of courses when I was in the program. Outside of the MBA program, I took some deep learning AI because I was in the autonomous vehicles at the time. I took electives that I took on were that really very useful was the disciplined entrepreneurship with Bill Olet. Highly recommend that class, highly recommend the book. Is a very good structure framework to be thinking about starting a business, whether that's within a company or outside as a startup. So I use that all the time. I took on governance of corporate boards, which has deemed very useful for me as well, engaging with our board. So there is a number of classes anywhere, seconding what Mike said, any framework that you need in terms of how boards work, how IP works, how finance work. The program really teaches you to be an executive leader. And it's a gift that keeps on giving. It's a program that keeps the alumni engaged in many ways, and you don't need to feel like you have to take it all in one go, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, similar to Oli, I did not cross-register at Harvard just because of my own time constraints. But yeah, I have actually a similar history as she does in terms of the electives I've taken. The downside is that you can only take 2 electives per electives period. So I've been keeping track of the classes I want to take as an alum. Because again, that's a huge benefit to be able to have access to these resources in this ecosystem for the rest of your life. To me, that was an amazing advantage of this program. And you see alumni in these classes. It's actually quite fun to get to know some of the folks who come back and to hear their stories. So yeah, I mean, introduction to disciplined entrepreneurship is a must do. Again, in the spirit of a situation as an entrepreneur where you're trying to create a business, break into a market with no real sense of like how you're going to penetrate, and develop a new customer base. Bill's class lays out a very specific framework and very clear steps on the things you need to think about and do to make that happen. And it takes this sort of field for me that was pretty diffuse, new to startups, new to the entrepreneurial landscape, and creates a very concrete way to think about it. So regardless of whether or not you're joining the program, go buy his book, Bill Olet, Introduction to Disciplined Entrepreneurship. Excellent. I also took a class called LQ2, which is a real study on large-scale leadership. You learn directly from executives who've run multinational, huge industrial change. And it's an amazing class. So, again, leadership capability is one of the core strengths of this program. And it might not be intuitive given that it's MIT. You think about technology first, but leadership strength really stands out as a key aspect of the program. This coming semester, so I think in a couple of weeks, I'll be taking key roles of corporate boards. In my new role, I have to know something about that, as well as strategic finance. I also have to know something about that. So, in real time, I'm able to pick classes that can help me in my day-to-day. It's a great electives program. And again, it's something you can leverage for the rest of your life.
Thanks, Mike. That was great. It was one of the answers in the chat. So I don't know if you saw it or if you were just inspired and going to it. So that was a perfect answer. Thank you. Switching a little bit just from the technology aspect, and we can start with you, Oli. Ashish would like to know, how have you managed the coursework along with regular work and family?
That's a really good question. I do remember on the first day kickoff in September when we joined the program, Joe, the program director, says, get your ducks in the row. So recruit your village and get your ducks in the row. I do remember that advice. So you do need to recruit a village and the support network that you need around you. So be mindful of that. And the other thing that every person sort of find their rhythm, and it's really important to find that rhythm. It was ruthless prioritization. Of course, I did drop a lot of things that were nice to have, which somehow I end up picking them up again after graduation, even though I really liked that I was so ruthless in prioritizing things that mattered the most, but found a rhythm. So for me, I had younger kids, and I was working and my work was far. So I would do my reading through audio to get my reading done on my commute, and chunk my work on Saturdays. That was the time that I could find as a good chunk of block. But every person finds their own rhythm. So find your rhythm. So I would say support network, prioritization, and find your rhythm, and it works. The workload cannot be undermined. They do say that it's 20 hours on average, and it's not a steady flow. It's really peaks and valleys. So there will be times where it's going to feel like it's impossible, but you'll get through it.
So I have homework assignments I have to complete like right after this call. So I'm going through this right now. But I would say two things. Number one is that the key to making the most of your time here is as simple as staying organized. The great thing about the way the classes are structured is that the syllabi are released well in advance. All the class materials are usually available in totality before the class starts. So it's really on us to make sure that we capture all that information up front and start previewing what's coming, right? So just being organized about, previewing is important. And you have more time than you think you do, right? The 20 to 30 hours of homework a week, that's no joke. But you actually do have more time than you think you do, but if you're not organized, it's gonna feel like you have no time. So I would encourage you all to think through, all right, have a system to organize your notes, have a system to organize your class readings and your assignments, and things go a lot easier. The second thing I would say is, start now, learn how to be kind to yourself. I think all of us who are interested in this program, who end up joining the program, are fairly driven, type A folks who are used to being successful and are used to achieving. There's only so much you can achieve as a person who's trying to grow an executive career, manage a family, have a personal life, and learn as much as you can at MIT. So learning how to trade off on different aspects of that at different times is really important. And, it's a personal journey for me too. I'm no different than the usual, phenotype of the person that is accepted into this program. So learning how to be kind to yourself, learning how to trade off is really important. Focus on learning. is the number one thing. Grades are grades, but learning is the most important thing.
Really great point. I think you have 125 classmates that would hopefully second that thought. We had a question that came in, Mike, specifically to you, but Oli, I'm going to pitch it to you as well, because I think that it would apply both. Mike, it's about how did MIT shape your perspective to transform from a CTO to a CEO role, which can require extremely different skill sets? Oli, you've obviously have been promoted from senior vice president to president, so I imagine that that is a little bit of a change as well. So maybe if the two of you could share some insights around there.
Sure, I'm happy to start, Mike. So I've always had the motivation to operate at that interface between business and technology. And what's exciting to me is growth. What's exciting to me is solving problems and building teams that win and creating value. So that was one of the major motivations for joining the program, so I could get better at that and develop frameworks and frankly, the confidence to take those challenges on with conviction. And so, I'd been in the program for a little under a year when I was asked to step in as CEO here at Motif. And if it weren't for those, early months in the program, I wouldn't nearly be as well prepared as I am now. I ask a lot better questions in terms of, the breadth of, the business, the things to think about, the watch outs to consider, and frankly, the opportunities we need to be digging into. So my aperture in terms of my ability to think and to see what's possible expanded. My level of peripheral vision around the organization and how to manage the board and how to think about growing our team really expanded. And I just got way better at asking open-ended questions that engage my team and then engage my stakeholders. So I'd say if there's any one thing that really helped me take on this role, it's the ability to have a broader aperture and to ask much better open-ended questions of my team and stakeholders.
I could repeat a lot of it. So I started on the technology track, but the inspiration was on the people and teams and organization. And I particularly liked that aspects of the program. So really getting the tools to be having a better bird's eye view, but also to get deeper under the skin of the problem. So get more effective in the sense making and understanding what was going on. And a lot of the courses, and there's a lot of fun simulation programs that are specifically focused on getting buy-in and making change happen. So what accelerated my career was that understanding how to do that is really being an effective change leader. So I took on a lot of various initiatives and transitioned got promoted a couple of times through the program, transitioned, and organization transitioned to industry after the program. And that was the takeaway from that was the confidence, but also really being an effective change agent and being able to sell your ideas effectively. So that has been one of the key skills, and a network as well, which don't forget that as part of the program. That is one of the biggest assets that you will have that will stay with you.
So Oli, that was a perfect layup perhaps into one of the next questions. And this can go to you both. So Oli, if you want to start, what is the best subjective to you technological innovation you've encountered from your classmates at MIT? So I know you have a lot in the network and sometimes that imposter syndrome of who you're in a room with. So I would love to hear your thoughts on that.
It is, you walk into the room and I think, both Mikes mentioned there's all the archetypes. If you look at the class profiles, 90% director level and above, there is all A types, people that really want to achieve and have achieved a lot. So there is, the imposter syndrome can kick really high in a sense that you could be feeling like, oh, what's my role here? How can we learn? How do I add value to this? It is a community. So I don't think there is a specific one, but I can say that in every class that we had, there was someone that could that could speak of the case study because they've been part of it, that they'd actually lived through the case study that was being taught, that they had a real world problem that they were bringing to the table. And there was such an open-minded discussion. And that didn't mean that we agreed on everything, but it was really that transformative experience for me is really being able to have a very open, constructive, and intellectual debate with people that could be holding opposing views, but still had the right intent in mind and had that open mind and had the right make. So that for me, I still keep, and we have a WhatsApp chat that we start debating for every for every world problems. So I think I continue to learn from my classmates, and it's very humbling and fantastic experience. So there isn't one single one that I can say, yeah, that was brilliant. It was so many of them.
Yeah, I would echo that. And just a pro tip, WhatsApp is really important if you're at MIT. I have like 5 or 6 different chat groups that my cohort's involved with, and there's like hundreds of messages a day, and it's like really hard to keep up with. But you have to be a good WhatsApp jockey to keep up with everything. I think Oli said it quite well. Almost every case that we reviewed, regardless of the class that we're in, there's someone in the class who's been a part of it. There's someone in the class who's helped to create the reality that's being presented in the case. And the great thing about that is almost no one volunteers this. Usually the professor will find it out or will know, or they'll say something, the student will say something that intimates they know something, and then we'll kind of find out about it as a group, and then they'll talk more about it. So that humility is also, I think, a characteristic of the community here. We are all here to learn and grow and help each other. But the sense that you're in the room with the people that create the history you're learning from is a pretty cool feeling. Combine that with the fact that you're working with professors who are Nobel Prize quality in their fields, like literally, who are doing research at the cutting edge of what the world knows about management science. I feel like inspired every time I step into the classroom. So that's something to look forward to. I would also say, from the perspective of someone based in Boston who works in a food technology area, being part of this cohort has made working with MIT faculty in my area of interest a lot easier, and working with the Office of Tech Transfer to set up partnerships and research programs. We currently have a program going with Gareth McKinley in mechanical engineering to help improve the performance of plant-based cheese. That whole process is a lot easier when you're part of this community. And it's a benefit that I think those of you who are local or who want to collaborate with the broader MIT ecosystem could definitely take advantage of.
I think we have time for one more question, and it's the question that I always ask at the end of every single one of these webinars. And if you can give one piece of advice to our prospective students in attendance today when it comes to applying to this program, what would it be?
I'll let you go first, Oli.
Thank you very much.
I don't want to be. There's so much advice.
I tell this to everyone. The admission team pours so much effort to thoroughly analyze every single individual. And your best chance is to be your own best self. So really bring your best self, but your own self to the application process. Because the class is made in a way that the experience is additive to everyone. And so that really be your authentic best self is my advice, and apply and apply on time. And if you have any questions, reach out to alumni. If you have doubts, definitely reach out to alumni, reach out to the program, engage with the consultant that you get assigned. But definitely apply. That's the first step.
Yeah, thanks for going first, Oli. I would say tell your story, right? It's as simple as that. And I think that sounds kind of trivial, but in my experience, a lot of the, again, phenotypes of people that apply to this program aren't used to talking about their experience or their journey as a story, but everyone has a story. And I think take time to take a step back, look at your career path, look at where you want to go, and think about it in terms of how would you tell this? How would you create a narrative out of it? How would you talk about this as a human being? You know, as like a novel, right? How would you go from point A to point B? What are you aspiring to do? That's a story, right? But as technical people, I think sometimes we think in terms of bullet lists and chunks of information that aren't necessarily super cohesive. But give yourself the time and space to think it through that way. And, you know, look at the questions that are being asked in the application and your opportunities to tell your story in your essays, and make those cohesive, right? And stitch them together. And I think that's a very gratifying exercise, just personally. But I think it's also good practice for how you'll develop and learn in the program.
That's, I mean, great advice from both of you. Really appreciate those insights. Mike and Oli, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Thank you for providing your insights. I know that for Amber, myself, and Tom, it's always incredible to hear what our students and alumni, their impressions of the program, and it's so fulfilling for the work that we do. So I thank you both for joining us. We have just a few more slides that we will share before we wrap up this evening. The slide you see here has our application dates listed. As you can see, we have 5 rounds in which you could submit your application. The first round deadline is about a month away, so January 12th. And then there is a deadline each month after that. Switch to a round-based deadline format this year so that we are able to better give decisions to our applicants. Once you apply, you will find out a decision in about 8 weeks after that deadline. That's pretty consistent throughout. In that time, you'll also be notified if you are invited for an interview too. Our application is now open, and also would be important for me to note that all of our deadlines are at 11:59 p.m. Eastern time. We also have some exciting events coming up. This is actually our last event for the calendar year 2022. Our next 3 recruiting events will be held in Texas. If you are in the Houston, Austin, or Dallas area, I invite you to join us on the dates listed. We will have a program insights event at MIT Sloan. That will be on Tuesday, January 24th. And then 2 virtual events, our next 2 virtual events. The first would be diversity, equity, and inclusion in the MIT Executive MBA, and then Ask an MIT EMBA advisor chat. So I do invite you to join us. You can find all of those events and more listed at our website, which is at the bottom of the slide. So I always like to end by saying, after hearing all of your thoughtful questions, I do want to close by saying, if you want to challenge convention and challenge yourself, if you want to broaden your perspective as well as your network, and if you want to have an impact on your company, your industry, and the world, we hope to hear from you. Again, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you to our panelists. Thank you to Amber and Tom. We look forward to hearing from you soon. Have a good evening.